What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Eric Wilson. And bad news struck the New York Rangers yesterday afternoon. Filip Chytil out for the remainder of the season, recovering still from his upper body injury, which is believed to be a concussion. We learned that after going down in his second practice, there was some speculation that it was maybe a lower body injury, but the Rangers clarified that it was indeed a setback from his upper body injury from the concussion. So he is being shut down for the remainder of the season. Now, this has some pretty big ramifications on the Rangers because A, they're losing a really crucial piece of their team. B, it frees up a lot of cap space for them. C, it probably reprioritizes how Chris Drury reacts to the upcoming trade deadline and what he decides to target on the trade market. So we're going to kind of go ahead and dive into all that, our reaction to Filip Chytil being out for the season. First and foremost, we will say sometimes life is bigger than hockey, guys. We are just here to say that we are wishing a speedy and thorough recovery for Filip Chytil, praying for him to make a full recovery. His health is more important than the Rangers and hockey in general. So we're going to go ahead and discuss kind of Filip Chytil, his absence from the lineup for the rest of the season, the impact that that's going to have on the Blue Shirts, and talk about some of the top center trade targets that the Rangers could look at for the upcoming deadline. But before we dive into all that, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. You can so don't miss an episode and comment your thoughts on the topics down below in the comment section. Make sure to go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Rangers. Without further ado, Eric, how are you doing today, my friends? And what is your reaction to Filip Chytil being done for the season?
I'm doing good. I'm in agreement. The Rangers needed to make that decision on Filip Chytil. I think it was like his fifth concussion over just the last few years. The kid's only 24 years old, just 2 years older than us. And like you said, at a certain point, you kind of just got to take a step back. Health is more important than hockey. I'm not shocked by this decision, just especially with how long Chytil's been out and going through that setback. Definitely the right call there by the Rangers. And hopefully we'll be able to see Phil play again next season. I know he released his own personal statement. He's feeling confident. He said he'll be back stronger than ever. So we'll look forward to that next season, as sad as it is. But for now, it is a business. The Rangers do have a pretty wide hole in their lineup now. We thought they would go out and acquire a right winger at the trade deadline this season. And although that is still a problem that probably needs to be addressed, I don't think it's as dire as the center position here now, because with Hedl out, before he was ruled out for the season, they had Nick Bonino filling in that third line center role. He was just recently put on waivers. And now they have Johnny Brodzinski, career AHL player, fill in the lineup. And although hasn't been bad really by any means, I think there's definitely a lot of room for improvement there. So, yeah, the Rangers made the right decision on Hedl, but it does create a little bit of a problem that the Rangers do need to address here in the NHL. So we'll see how they address it. And we got a few options here that could possibly work.
Yeah, and before we dive into all of those options, I do want to have a discussion on Filip Chytil, and kind of what his absence to the Rangers might mean, Eric, and kind of just talk about what they're really missing in Filip Chytil, because we've seen them kind of have a rotation, different centers coming in and out of the lineup since Filip Chytil's been out, and he's been out for quite a while, so they're mostly adjusted to it at this point. However, the expectation was that he would return at some point. Things are different now that we know he's not going to return. And again, the Rangers are likely to address this through a trade. But even still, I think it's worth kind of discussing and noting that what the Rangers were building here and what they were expecting their lines to look like throughout the rest of the season are drastically changing now. And I think it's going to have an impact on several players. I mean, last week, Eric, we did an episode talking about Filip Chytil's return, how it was coming soon. And we had a lengthy discussion about what that means for Kaapo Kakko and how we thought that could have a big impact on him and help him play better, because Kakko's been kind of moving around the lines this season. We've seen him on the first line, seen him on the third line. And we were saying on the third line, Kid Line 2.0 with Will Cooley, Filip Chytil, and Kaapo Kakko, that could be an excellent line for the Rangers. That could be a way to get Kaapo Kakko playing back in form, help Will Cooley continue to develop, all these great things that we thought were going to happen with Filip Chytil in the lineup. Now, how do you think things change without Filip Chytil ever returning to the lineup? What do you think the impact is on those line mates that he was projected to play alongside with Will Cooley and Kaapo Kakko?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Kid Line 2.0 sounded pretty nice. Kakko has been struggling a little bit. He's not scoring as much as the Rangers really would have liked to see happen. but he's become pretty great defensively, I will say. So, him on that third line, I think it's a better fit. And with Vincent Trocheck being elevated up into that second line role and playing as amazing as he is, Hedl would have been the new third line center upon his return, which, putting him and Kako back together, we've seen the success that they could have when they play together. The kid line throughout that pretty insane playoff run they had where they made it to the conference finals and eventually lost to Tampa. The kid line pretty much propelled the Rangers through all three of those rounds with a lot of the top stars not playing well. So Hedl, he's a young, dynamic player that definitely makes an impact when he's on the ice. And we know the Rangers were confident in him. I mean, just look, he started off the season as the second line center because they were expecting a pretty big breakout season from Hedl, just a continuation of a breakout season, I should say. Like, I have his career stats pulled up right here. Throughout pretty much every season he's played in, he's been pretty stagnant. He had 23 points, 23, 22, 22, all in a row there chronologically. And then last season he breaks out for 45 points in a season that he didn't even play the full 82 games. He only had 74. So just looking at that, doubled his points, more than doubled his points. He probably could have grown even further and hit maybe, I remember before this season started, we were talking about him on the second line with Panarin. He probably could have hit 60, 70 points looking at the way that Panarin has been playing and has been elevating Lafreniere and Trocheck so far this season. But then you look now, the results of this season, Hedl only played in 10 games, didn't score a goal, but he did have 6 assists. So, he was in those 10 games, not really a big sample size, but at least to say on pace for like another 40 something point season, maybe 50. And I'm sure once he got situated on the second line, he would have grown and played a lot better. So, the Rangers are losing a guy who's going to produce you points pretty much every other game. He didn't score a goal in those 10 games, but I remember earlier this season, he came pretty close every single game and he would have started scoring too. So the Rangers, they've been pretty successful without Hedl. They've gone through some rough patches without Hedl this season. But at the end of the day, you're losing a guy was supposed to be a member of your top 6 core. And that's not something that's easily replaced. Yeah, they've done what they can to make it work over the last, what has it been, like 3 months now? He got injured on November 2nd against Carolina. I think that date is just engraved in my mind. But I don't know. It's not going to be easy to find a guy to do what Filip Chytil does. His loss is definitely going to be felt throughout the rest of the season. And like I said, to start off this episode, the target for the trade deadline this season, it has immediately been shifted. The right wing is one of those problems that, it could be improved, but we're not like hitting the panic button. We need one. The second Filip Chytil was ruled out for the season, that just immediately switches to center. That's the number one priority here. That's who the Rangers need to go out and replace, because losing Filip Chytil, it's going to be felt, and we need to do something about it.
Right. The Rangers can live with a Blake Wheeler if they need to, but can they live with a Nick Bonino? I don't think so. And so that's kind of where we say the Rangers need to shift their priorities here at the trade deadline. But again, one of the silver linings here for Filip Chytil being out for the season is his cap hit is no longer on the books for the Rangers. So we know that this Rangers team was totally cap strapped, didn't have a lot of room to make moves and to work with anything here, but now they do. I think they have around 5 to 6 million freed up from Filip Chytil being out for the season, and that 5 to 6 million is going to be huge. Like, that's super impactful. They could fit pretty much every single one. Yeah, every single one of these candidates that we're going to dive into, Eric, can be fit underneath the salary cap without having to move any other contracts due to Filip Chytil being out of the lineup. So that's huge. And so that's why I think, even talking about how you just mentioned right wing isn't going to be a priority for them anymore. Maybe it's not going to be, but with 5 to 6 million available in cap space now, they can probably acquire both a center and a right wing if they so choose, and if the right deal comes to place, because obviously they could still maybe move Barclay Goodrow's contract, have a contract retained, those kind of things with some draft picks. So there are a lot of opportunities now for the Rangers to not only find a season-long replacement for Filip Chytil, but also improve the right wing spot because of how much money was freed up on the salary cap. So let's go ahead, Eric, and shift into this and dive into some of those top players that you think could be trade targets. I know you have a little bit of a short list here. So First one up, let me hear who you're thinking about for the Rangers center trade target.
Yeah, so I got three options here. And when I was doing some research preparing for this episode, I have kind of come to realize, at least as of right now, there aren't too many centers out there on the trade target lists. You look around on the internet, you got all like the trade bait, NHL rumors and discussions and everything. Not too many centers out here. So this is going to create a little bit of a problem for Drury because we're kind of looking for a depth center. You have Zibanejad at number one, you have Trocheck at number two. We're looking for a bottom six guy, and there's really only one out there, but I'll get into him later. So the first name I want to talk about here, Elias Lindholm. I think when you do look at those trade bait talks and rumors, Lindholm is probably pretty high up on everyone's list just around the NHL. He's a young center, 29 years old. He's an NHL All-Star this year, so we'll get to see him play in the All-Star game in just like a few days. I think it's like February 4th or something like that. I don't even know when the All-Star break is. Oh, we're in the break, but I don't know when the game is. But he's having a pretty good season. 49 games played, 9 goals, 23 assists, 32 points. So he hasn't been scoring a lot of goals this season, but he has been scoring a decent amount of assists. And I think when you look at a line that would consist of Capo Caco and Will Cooley, that might be what they need right now. Cooley, I love him. He's not the biggest offensive producer, though. Capo Caco looks like he's on the brink of scoring like a 30-goal season. He just has terrible luck and can't really finish that well. So having a kind of a playmaker like Lindholm would definitely help Caco at least. The problem I see here with Lindholm, though, is any team like Calgary is going to get a lot of offers for Lindholm. And I think of all the offers that they're going to get, those teams are going to be looking for a top six center, whereas the Rangers are looking for a third line center. So the Rangers might have to overpay a little bit for a guy who's not going to be utilized in the role that other teams would look for him. He's making $4.85 million this year. He's on the last year of his contract. So, it would be kind of a, why can't I think of the word when a rental? He would be more of a rental, which I don't think is what the Rangers really need right now. With Chytil being out for just the rest of the season, we're hopeful he'll be back next season, but everything's still up in the air for now. I think it wouldn't hurt to go out and get a guy that you can have for a few seasons, but I think Lindholm would be a huge boost to the team. He wouldn't be getting as much ice time as he would like probably, but it is an option out there that the Rangers could consider. I wouldn't have a problem with it. I'd be overjoyed if the Rangers got him, but I definitely think if there was a list of like criteria to make the perfect replacement option for Chytil, he doesn't fit all of them. But I don't think it's a bad option by any means.
Yeah, and just to clarify on those numbers from earlier with the salary cap space, according to Vince Mercoliano of Lowhide, it's $4.437 million that's going to be available to the Rangers for Filip Chytil no longer being with the team this season. So that 4.4 plus the 413,000 that they had in salary cap space before Chytil was done for the year, that does put them right around 4.85 in salary cap space, which, as you mentioned, is Lindholm's average annual value, 4.85 million.
And I do want to point out, because, regarding a trade, there's always the chance that the Rangers could sweeten the deal to get Calgary to retain at least a portion of that salary. But I'm just looking here. The Athletic posted an article today, and it has a few like mock trades regarding Lindholm and a few teams around the league. The Rangers are not one of them, but just looking at some of them here, like the Boston Bruins in this mock trade would give up a first-round pick, Matt Poitras and Trent Frederick, like two solid NHL regulars and a first-round pick. A lot of them involve first-round picks, and like the Canucks here would give up Andrei Kuzmenko. He's like one of another really good player. So the Rangers, if they were to become a part of this trade discussion, they would already be giving up probably a really high draft pick, either a really good prospect or like a couple of solid NHL players there. So doing that as well as trying to get them to retain some salary, they would be a pretty large trade package that, now that I've just thought about that, assuming this mock trade from the Athletic is accurate as to what would happen, it might be better to stay away. I don't know if I want to give up that much for a 1-year rental. I mean, look back at Patrick Kane last year and Tarasenko. We didn't give up that much for them. So I would try to stay away from sending too many pieces over to Calgary there. But that's just my opinion.
And I'm going to kind of further that into a larger discussion here on this New York Rangers team, because before we dive into some of these other candidates that I know you have, Eric, I'm just going to point out that last year the Rangers went all in at the deadline with some of these rentals. It didn't result in a cup. And this Rangers team, while at the beginning of the season we said, okay, maybe we're a piece away from being cup contenders, or we really were cup contenders at the beginning of the season, there's nothing over the last 25 games that the Rangers have played that tell you that they are legitimately one piece away. So giving up a ton of assets at this deadline in order to find that one or two pieces to make them a cup contender, likely not the wisest decision. I think the Rangers need to proceed with caution. There's plenty on this team that tells you that when they're in form and they're playing their best hockey, yes, they can be cup contenders. But over the last month or two, they haven't looked like those contenders. And the Rangers need to proceed with caution. I don't think that they are in a position here where Chris Drury can throw away a ton of assets in order to find that final piece and push them into cup contention. Because of the inconsistency, because of their tendency to get frequently injured, I don't know if this team is 1 to 2 pieces away. So while we should continue to dive into some of these options here, these options should be bought at a lower price point. Like what you just mentioned, giving up for Lindholm, it's a lot. I don't think that the Rangers are in a position to sacrifice a ton of assets. Last season, they did it. And again, it didn't result in the cup. They still were out in the first round. It was great having Kane for a little bit. He really wasn't that impactful. Tarasenko was excellent. I'd love to bring him back, but now you have to shift your priority to the center position. And really, these 1-year rentals, while they're fun and they do give you an added chance of making it deeper in the postseason, it's still a gamble and a risk. And I think because of the way this team has played over, again, their last 25 games, nothing's really screaming to me that they're in a position to take this kind of gamble and risk and that it'll pay off. So that's just kind of my spiel on that. Eric, if you have any thoughts on that, go ahead. But if not, go ahead and let's deliver our second candidate for trade.
Not many comments about what you said. I agree. You're definitely right about that one. I'm ready to get into this next guy here. I can already see it. Everyone hating on me in the comments because I'm even about to speak this name on this channel. Adam Henrique, currently on the Anaheim Ducks, but longtime New Jersey Devil. Fans will remember the 2012 Eastern Conference Finals when Henrique scored an overtime winner to send the Devils to the Stanley Cup Finals and send the Rangers home. It's definitely one of the goals that is just engraved in my memory here. But it's been like 12 years since that, and the Devils didn't even win that Stanley Cup. The Kings did. So I'm willing to let bygones be bygones. Adam Henrique, though, on Anaheim this season, 48 games played, 15 goals, 17 assists, 32 points. Now, I'm just going to say right off the bat, of the 3 guys that we're going to talk about today, this is probably the one that I'm like the least interested in. It just has to be a point of discussion because, like I said before, as of right now, there are basically no centers out there on teams' trade blocks. So when you're considering options, you're going to get some pretty poor options like this one. Whereas, compared to Lindholm, he has scored a little bit more goals, but he has the same amount of points. So I think really the difference here is that whereas Lindholm is more of like a playmaker type of guy, Henrique is going to be more of the type of player that's going to score the goals for you. The thing that kind of drives me away from Henrique, there's a few things. One, he's 33 years old. He's on the last year of his contract, so it wouldn't be like a long-term type of player, but he is a little bit older. He might have a little bit more playoff experience because of that, some of that knowledge that, as we know, is really important. But to me, it's just, I'm not sure. He's also a little bit more expensive. He's on the last year of his contract, but it comes at $5.825 annual average value. So the Rangers would probably have to give up a little bit more. He also has a no trade clause, so he would have to waive it in order for the Rangers to get him. He would have to be okay with going to the Rangers, which, being a longtime Devil, I'm not sure how he feels about that. I'm willing to move on from the past, but I'm not sure if he is. The only thing that kind of seems like a little bit as a positive when it comes to Henrique, in my opinion at least, is the fact that he is on the Anaheim Ducks. And unlike the Calgary Flames, the Ducks are absolutely terrible this season. Like, if I'm have it up right here, let's see. They are the third worst team in the NHL right now. So they're going to be sellers at this trade deadline. They're going to be shipping pieces off left and right. So getting them to give up Henrique and retain maybe half of that salary is going to be a lot easier for the Rangers than it would be to get the Flames to do it for Lindholm. So that's the positive that I see from it. When we just talked about how much the Rangers might need to be willing to give up for Lindholm, it's not going to be that much for Henrique. Maybe just like a third round pick and a prospect, and that's it. Maybe a third round pick and Barclay Goodrow. That would be nice. So that's the upside that I see in Henrique. But then, you look at his age and just the fact that he's on the last year of his contract. I personally, of the three that we're talking about today, my least favorite of these options, but I don't think it's a terrible option. I think the Rangers could consider it if Lindholm becomes a little bit too expensive or is off the market pretty quickly, because I'm expecting a lot of teams to make offers on him. But that's just my take on it.
Yeah, and I think obviously you mentioned some pros, some cons there. I know you said that this is your least favorite option of the three that we're going to discuss. I mean, I think that the no trade clause, that's obviously something that stands out as a barrier. Plus the 5.825 AAV, that's super high. The Rangers would have to make they would have to jump some hurdles in order to get a deal like that done. Again, they're only going to have around 4.8 in their salary cap space after the Filip Chytil contract is off the books. And so I'll even say, I think with the first option with Lindholm, I don't know if making a trade like that, I know we said that it's kind of irresponsible because the Rangers aren't that one piece away, and giving away too many assets for that wouldn't be the brightest idea. But even still, the Rangers have been like right up to the line on salary cap space all season long. Maybe trading for a cheaper option and giving themselves a little bit of breathing room wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Like, they're just constantly right at that limit. And I don't think that it is necessarily the smartest idea to keep staying at that limit. We've seen in the past with certain injuries and the Rangers need to make a call up, but oh wait, they can't. There's a problem here with this. I mean, that happened last season, I know. So I just think that the Rangers should maybe target this third guy. Of all the three guys, would probably be the leading man to target, because he does have a cheaper AAV at $1.985 million. So Eric, let me hear your take on the third and final target.
So the third and final target, my favorite of the bunch, Sean Monahan, on the Montreal Canadiens. I know me and Colin did an episode a few weeks ago where I said that Sean Monahan would probably be my number one guy to acquire if we ever needed a center. Well, it's a few weeks later. We need a center. And I see that a lot of people around the NHL community are starting to agree with me on this one. But there's a few reasons why I like him. The biggest thing is he's cheap. He's only on a 1-year deal with Montreal. It's worth $1.985 million just for the rest of this year. So you're looking at like more than half cheaper than the other two options that we're talking about here. He's 29 years old, so he's young, and he's having himself a pretty solid season. 49 games played, 13 goals, 22 assists, 35 points. So kind of similarly to Lindholm, he's more of the assist kind of player. He's also playing on the Montreal Canadiens, who haven't been the best team this season. I'm pretty sure they're out of a playoff spot. Yeah, they're 26th out of 32 in the NHL. So put them on a team like the New York Rangers, and maybe those stats inflate a little bit and they go up, just being surrounded by better players. And I think the biggest thing that we like about Sean Monahan is that we're looking for a third line center. And guys like Lindholm, Henrique, they're second lines or first line centers that wherever they get traded to, that's their role they're going to fill. Monahan's a nice bottom six guy, and the Rangers would only have to pay for a bottom six guy. I know the biggest thing that is turning people away from this, like, it is confirmed that the Rangers are a team to watch with Monahan. I know that was revealed yesterday that the Rangers are interested, but with Jeff Gorton over in Montreal, previous Rangers general manager before Drury, I've heard some rumors that there might be some bad blood between Gorton and Drury, and we're like, even if the deal presents itself, Montreal might just not do it because they don't want to deal with the Rangers. Now, again, that's all speculation. I just heard some rumors about that. I know Colin was texting me about that a little bit. So take that with a grain of salt. I think the Rangers definitely should make an offer for Monahan because, like a young guy, only 29 years old, relatively cheap. His contract expires after this season, but this is one of those guys where it doesn't have to be a rental if the Rangers don't want it to. Like once that contract expires, if him and the organization both enjoy their time together and he's working out, there's no reason why the Rangers can't sign him to like a 3 or 4 year deal and just have him as a depth piece for the foreseeable future. He's a player that I've enjoyed watching just over the last few years. It's been bounced around a little bit across the league, but I think it's the best option out there in a world where there's not too many centers available right now, and the options that are available are not ideal. This is probably the only one out there that I say is ideal. Like I mentioned that list of criteria that would make for a perfect trade. This is probably the only one that hits all those points.
I'll say that I agree with you. I think it does fit the criteria rather perfectly. Again, that 1.985 AAV being a massive selling point. Like you mentioned, the contract's going to expire at the end of the season, but if he plays well, could be a potential extension candidate for the Rangers. I like Sean Monahan. I think when you're looking at his stats, 49 games played, 35 points, plus he's an actual third line center. He makes the most sense for this Rangers team rather than trying to swing for the fences, give up a ton of assets for a top six guy, and move him down into the bottom six. Let's trade for a bottom six guy who can just plug and play, fit in right there. Now, I know you said some speculation, some rumors as to whether or not the Rangers would even be able to get this deal done. That's obviously a hurdle to jump, but there's less hurdles to jump on this one than there are for the other candidates. I think this one makes the most sense. I think that Sean Monahan would be my ideal trade target for the Rangers at the center position going into this deadline. Again, though, I think another selling point of this would be with that lower AAV. You could trade for Monahan and still find the winger. You could still get your right winger. Or, and I know that we've kind of touched on this through text messages, Eric, maybe they shouldn't even be going for a winger. Just live with Blake Wheeler. Just get along with it, right? Maybe find a good defenseman. I don't think that hurts. We've had a lot of problems this season with guys like Keandre Miller not playing up to their normal standards and a lot of inconsistency and injuries in the defensive core. And I think that maybe a combination of Sean Monahan plus a defenseman might make the most sense here. But again, at least filling in that hole for the third line center should be the priority. And I like Monahan best of the bunch. But Eric, before we wrap up, I'll let you give any closing thoughts on these center targets and also, I guess, potentially the idea of trading for a defenseman over a right wing.
Yeah. So I will say you are right. Whereas if the Rangers were to hypothetically go for a guy like Lindholm or Henrique, because of the cap space, that would be the only move that you're able to make. And yes, I would say that center is the number one priority, but trading for a guy like Monahan, like you said, you can get him, and then you can also have a little bit of cap space to work on the other stuff that isn't necessary, but preferable to be improved upon. I saw earlier this morning on Instagram that Keandre Miller might be on the Rangers trade block right now. I don't think there's been any confirmation on it, but it does appear, and I hope it's true, that the Rangers are going to be looking to trade away Keandre Miller. He's been absolutely terrible this season, and the Rangers need to improve their defensive core. And maybe a change of scenery for Miller will help him get back into shape and improve his game once again, because we've seen how good he can be when he's playing well, but when he's not playing well, it's pretty bad. So like, I could see it, if the Rangers trade away Miller for another defenseman, or honestly, if they just trade away Miller for a right winger. If a team has an abundance of offensive players and they need a defender, the Rangers could easily make that happen. But I think the one thing that we know for certain is that the center is the number one priority that the Rangers are going to be addressing at the deadline this year. It's taken a quick shift to that, but it's the clear and obvious thing that needs to be done. As far as wingers and defensemen go, they both need to be improved. I kind of see it the same way, where there are equal levels of importance. If I'm Chris Drury, I would just find a way to do both. I don't think it would be hard to do both. If the Rangers go out and they trade for Sean Monahan, they still have enough cap space to get like a solid winger right there. And then trading away Keandre Miller. I don't know exactly how much he's making, but I think it's like 4 point something Keandre Miller's making. Trade that away. You have enough money to go get another defender. The Rangers don't have a lot of cap space to work with, but as long as they are comfortable moving some of their own pieces, that cap space will open up as players come and go. And when the Rangers trade for Sean Monahan, they're probably going to lose maybe, I don't even know who they would trade away, but it's probably going to involve a player. So I don't know. Money is confusing in the NHL. I don't know how Drury does it, but we saw what happened last year. The Rangers had like negative money and they went and they got Kane, Tarasenko, Mott, and they entered the playoffs with like $2 to spare, like $2 and change. So if he's able to do that, I am confident that he will be able to do something at this deadline. And I don't know, that about wraps it up. Just go get Sean Monahan sooner rather than later, please. Remember last year, the Rangers got Vladimir Tarasenko like a few weeks before the deadline even came about. The Rangers were the first team to make the splash and got the gears turning at that deadline. We should be able to do it again. I don't feel like seeing this team continue to lose because they don't have a good enough bottom six. So just go get Monahan today. Make the call, Drury.
I'm down for it. I hope that that's the call he makes, and I hope that that's the trade he completes. Just to clarify, Keandre Miller is on a $3.87 million salary through next season, so he's still under contract for 2 more years, taking up 4.6% of the Rangers salary cap. That's a fun fact. That's actually higher than Gaudreau, Lafreniere, Kakko. It's a pretty high mark for him, comparatively speaking to the rest of the Rangers players. But yeah, that's just clarification on Keandre Miller's contract. If they move that, I agree with you. They can definitely target winger, defenseman. They could get a lot of deals done. I think that is the silver lining here. Losing Filip Chytil sucks. I wish this didn't happen. I wish he stayed healthy the entire season and he had that breakout campaign that we were projecting. But unfortunately, that's not going to be the case. And now the Rangers need to find contingency plans here. And I think that the silver lining is no Filip Chytil opens up a lot of money for them to spend. And there are some targets out there that they can spend that salary cap space on. So it should be an interesting time leading up to this deadline. Of course, you've got the All-Star break coming up. See how the Rangers reboot and reset and attack the next portion of the season after the break, hopefully with a lot more consistency than they had in the final month leading up to the break. But maybe they'll come out of the break with a new player. Who knows? Maybe Peter Laviolette, as the coach there at the All-Star game, maybe he'll go ahead, do a little bit of scouting, a little bit of recruiting, say, hey, want to come play with the Rangers? Lindholm will be there. Maybe he says, hey, want to come join the Blue Shirts? It's possible. So I think that's something to keep an eye on. I'm sure there will be some rumors circulating and swirling about during the All-Star break. And of course, we'll update you guys on all of that right here on Fireside Rangers. So make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. Comment your thoughts on the topics down below in the comment section. If you listen to Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review and go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Rangers. Without further ado, we will catch you all on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Rangers.